Chapter 31. Enter the Magic Tower. Starting the formation of new cores to accommodate the new mana particles. Completed. Automatic mana gathering has been enabled. Michael closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The new mana particles oozing out of the Magic Tower were abundant, and he used this opportunity to soak up as much as he could. He felt the presence of 4 very minute crystals form surrounding his main elemental mana cores. Gathering lightning mana felt like a prickling feeling in his skin. Meanwhile, the poison mana felt like he was experiencing heartburn. However, he wasn't uncomfortable for very long. They quickly got absorbed through his skin and entered the budding new crystals, growing them by a tiny amount. Meanwhile, the woman just finished processing what she heard after a minute of shock. You're talented in all the 4 main elements. Dear gosh, that's why your assessment is handled by the Tower Master. She found it weird that the Tower Master personally took time out of his busy schedule to assess the magic of a 5-year-old boy. She thought it was just because his last name was Vanderbilt, but it turned out it was because of his enormous talent in the mystic arts. She'd never seen a quadruple mastery mage in her entire life and only heard about it in tales and legends of old. It was a sobering feeling after she looked at the unassuming normal boy like Michael and compared him to the heroes of the past. Why don't you make yourself comfortable in the Magic Tower? I'll have to hurry the Tower Master from his business and assess you immediately. This is too important. The woman immediately took out a long broomstick from her magic ring and sat on it before it started to float away into the distance. Did she really just leave a 5-year-old boy alone? Michael shrugged. He could take care of himself. This was for the better as well. He wanted to take his time and observe every mage in the Magic Tower to learn all kinds of spells from their practice sessions. He walked toward the portal-like entrance of the tower with excitement filling his face. When he stepped foot on the other side, the first thing he noticed was that the inside was a lot bigger than what the Magic Tower looked like from the outside. As he took to his new surroundings, awe filled his face. All along the walls were oil paintings of human portraits that seemed to be moving like they were human. Some bowed towards him, while others ignored him and continued whatever they were doing in the painting. He looked up and saw floating staircases leading to nowhere. He saw mages further up the ceiling walking upside down without their pointy hat falling to the floor. Felt like he was looking at an illusion. Dancing candles lit up the room, chasing each other around the air like little kids playing in the fields. Talking books, pillars, and doors were normal in this place. Some tempted Michael to open their door, some warned him not to, and others laughed at seeing him ignore the mystical objects in the chamber. Michael must have spent about 10 minutes marveling at everything he saw in the Magic Tower. It was everything he thought it would be and more. It made him wonder how the authors of his previous world got a lot of things right when they were creating magic towers in their stories. He continued wandering through the chamber, peering through the different halls that led to different parts of the tower. From what he heard about Castell's brief visit to the Magic Tower, the first floor was available for the public to see and marvel at. It was supposed to be a place where mages presented their magic to strike awe and amazement in the eyes of normal people. But no matter where he looked, there seemed to be no such presentation of any kind. There weren't even any mages there to welcome him at all. Where's the conjurations? Where's the sorcery? Where are the spells? I have sensed no use of mana in this vicinity. However, there is some evidence of human activity in that direction. I suggest you investigate the hallway further. Michael followed ChatJK1's directions and followed a winding hallway that led to a different chamber. As he got closer to the next room, Michael heard the sounds of something banging on a table. And it wasn't just one sound, it was a collection of one. He passed through the open door and saw the circular interior of the room, with shelves housing thousands of books lining the walls. This looked like a library. But, instead of silence and peace, there were a lot of people gathered around the railings and peering down to the center of the room. Ho ho ho, what a blunder. I expected more from him. How could he let his pawn get taken away? The top spot is still up for grabs. It's a tight competition. Michael listened to the chatter of the spectators and couldn't help but feel as if he knew what was going on. He squeezed through the crowd and looked through the wooden railings. Pak! Thea,
Puck.
The sounds of hundreds of chess pieces banging on wooden boards filled his ears. On the lower floor of this library, there were about 100 square tables containing one chess board each, with some pieces sprawled around the edges and some still standing proudly in their designated spots. Imagine Michael's surprise when he learned the real reason why he couldn't see mages performing their magic spells. They were too busy playing chess. He didn't know what to feel. Happy that Reborn chess was spreading fast, or sad that they were too obsessed with the game to show him spells to learn. As usual, Michael was suffering from success. Chapter 32. Grifting Mages for Spells. Michael found the stairs leading down and joined the collection of serious mages focused on the game. He did not travel for 4 hours in a bumpy carriage ride to the waste-ridden Kingsbridge city just so that the mages would spend the whole day playing chess. He wanted magic spells. Ha! Checkmate! I win! One particular game ended, with the winner announcing his proud victory out loud. The loser quickly left the table, desolate and saddened. Michael approached the winner. "Excuse me, but aren't you going to perform magic spells in front of the crowd?" He pointed towards the crowd up on the second floor. The man, having just been on a victory high, graciously answered Michael's question. There's no need for that anymore," answered the bespectacled mage. "Instead, we have daily chess tournaments to show our advanced intellect to the good people of Kingsbridge. Normal people don't really understand magic anyway. If they see something colorful, they clap, even if it's just a 1-star spell. I perform a boring 5-star spell and they barely react. But with this chess tournament, even normal people could understand how the mages from the Guild of Arcana are superior in intellect to any other job. They also know how to play chess, so they recognize when one player is better than them." Michael was so disheartened that he had to sit down on the chair. He was so excited to analyze every spell he saw from the mages, only to find out they no longer performed spells for the general public. If he hadn't invented chess, Michael sighed. He was his own worst enemy, but he didn't want to give up. He looked at the scattered chess pieces on the board and an idea formed in his mind. He collected the chess pieces and arranged them into their correct spots. The bespectacled mage shot a weird look at Michael. "Kid, my next opponent is going to be here soon. You don't even know what you're doing." The mage thought Michael was just playing around with the pieces, but he was surprised to find out that the pieces were correctly placed with no mistakes. The queen was even in the right place, which most rookies tend to forget. Michael then took out a leather pouch from his pocket and plopped it onto the table, with the satisfying catching sound reaching the bespectacled mage. "Gold coins," he muttered, already tempted. "How about we play a game of chess? If you win, I'll give you 100 gold coins. If I win, you have to perform one magic spell in front of my eyes," Michael said, with a devious grin on his face. The mage looked at Michael with suspicion. Seemed too easy. He only had to beat a 5-year-old kid, and he would win a prize equivalent to doing odd jobs through the city for an entire month. And the consequences weren't that bad either. He just had to perform a spell in front of a kid. It was too good to be true. It sounded like a trap. But I could use more money to buy a new broomstick, the mage pondered. Then he looked at Michael with all seriousness. "No takebacks," he warned Michael. "No takebacks," Michael replied as he made the first move. "Tuck." A couple of minutes later, the bespectacled mage had his head in his hands as he watched Michael absolutely decimate his pieces with nothing but a knight and a rook. "I can't believe it. I lost, to a kid, no less." He was entirely outclassed. The mage was mad for a second since his pride was hurt, but after thinking about the game, he became intensely curious at the advanced tactics Michael showed that nobody had ever thought of before. "Checkmate," Michael said, knocking down his opponent's king off the board. The bespectacled mage went silent for a few seconds before bombarding Michael with tons of questions. "During this part, why did you move your bishop to this place? Also, you could have taken my queen, but you didn't. I realized that it led to my downfall, but how did you think of that? I thought I was winning, until I wasn't." Michael saw pure curiosity coming out of the mage's eyes. He could see why intellectual minds like him were so taken with this game. "Sometimes, it's better to sacrifice pieces to get a better position," Michael answered, He spilled out all the lessons he learned while playing chess in his previous world, and the man listened to him without ever uttering a single word. He no longer treated Michael as just a 5-year-old child. I see, thank you. That was very insightful. I feel like my game has improved so much. Michael appreciated it. You're welcome, he said. But of course, he couldn't forget their agreement. Ahem. Now about my prize. The mage was so busy consolidating the lessons he learned that he almost completely forgot about their deal. Oh, right. I have to show you a spell, right? Michael nodded. The mage thought long and hard about what spell he was going to show Michael. If it was before, he would have simply shown him a 1-star spell and been done with it. But he couldn't do that to Michael. Not after he taught him so much about chess. Look closely. This is a 3-star spell called Cloud of Daggers. The bespectacled mage raised his hand and gathered mana at the tip of his fingers. Then, illusionary daggers made out of violet mystic aura appeared around the mage, circling him at fast speeds. Michael reckoned that anyone who tried to get close to the guy would immediately be ripped to shreds by those daggers. Analyzing magic. Magic theory acquired. Cloud of daggers. Fire and dark element. This magic creates a sea of daggers revolving around the user in a 1-meter outer radius from the body. Michael read the magic's description and was satisfied with its defensive abilities. It would be very useful to a guy like him who didn't like to fight with his hands. Thanks, Michael said. Just then, another mage walked towards them and got curious as to what they were doing. I just won my match and we're supposed to be fighting next round. Wait, looks like you lost your game, the scruffy man said as he observed the chessboard. The bespectacled man quickly explained. What happened was... A few minutes later, the scruffy man was all caught up with what happened in the match. Then, he couldn't help but look at Michael and ask, 100 gold if I win, right? A devious smile appeared on Michael's face. And so, the grift began. Chapter 33, Farming Magic Spells. A few minutes later, Michael had another win in his belt. I lost, the scruffy mage said in utter disbelief. He couldn't believe how easily a 5-year-old kid beat him in just a couple of moves. Michael felt bad for the guy. It was as if they were the kid, and he was the adult bullying them in a grown man's game. As a consolation prize, he decided to give him pointers on how to avoid being checkmated in less than 20 moves. When I put my queen here, you should have been wary of my next move because... Michael replayed the moves on the chessboard and taught the scruffy mage about what would have happened if he made the right moves. The man slapped his own head after realizing how much he blundered. And he couldn't believe that Michael was able to think that far ahead. The man had to put down his hat on the table, showing Michael the respect he deserved. You have bested me clear as day. And as promised, I will hold up my end of the bargain and perform one of my signature 4-star spells. The scruffy man raised his hand and snapped his fingers, with mana particles shooting out of his hand and forming into a definite shape once it was out in the air. An animate crow with a transparent body entirely made out of violet mystic energy appeared in the air. The crow circled Michael's head, with its eyes showing clarity as if it were a real living being. Michael looked back at the man and saw his eyes had turned milky white. This is a 4-star spell called Mystic Crow Summon. It allows you to create a crow that you can completely control. Magic theory acquired. Mystic Crow Summon. Dark and lightning element. This magic creates a summoned crow. The user can see everything that the crow sees. These were very useful spells that Michael could use someday. The Cloud of Daggers looked like a great offensive and defensive spell, while the Mystic Crow Summon was great for scouting ahead. Even though he wasn't planning on putting himself in danger, he couldn't deny that the danger could come to him at some point in the future. This was a fantasy world after all. Young man, can I have a go next? Michael saw a couple more mages waiting in line to sit at the chair opposite him. They were part of the small crowd that saw what Michael did to defeat the scruffy magician. They felt amazed at his chess strategies and wanted to fight him at least once. But perhaps the reason why they were so eager to play against him was the tutoring session after each battle. The 2 mages that Michael defeated came out of the match with looks of excitement and curiosity. They wanted to experience that too. And the price to pay for this immensely helpful lesson was just a simple magic presentation for the little child. It was more than a bargain, seeing that they were being personally tutored by a master of chess. "As long as you show me your spells, I'm willing to take you on," Michael said, preparing the chess pieces for another game. Time passed by as Michael defeated mage after mage without breaking a sweat. These mages were so inexperienced with chess that they were falling for easy traps and setups that were extremely popular back in his previous life. Michael exploited this weakness to defeat as many mages as possible, with the express intent of farming their magic spells. And as he defeated more and more, he started to gather the attention of the whole room. Even one of the front runners to win the whole chess tournament was tempted to fight against Michael. And as usual, Michael beat him as well, albeit with a little more effort. This skyrocketed his reputation within the Magic Tower, with almost all the mages lining up to try and get a chance to beat the unstoppable 5-year-old kid. Magic theory acquired. Magic theory acquired. Magic theory acquired. Magic theory acquired. "Please, let me go next." One mage pushed through the crowd and raised his hand. "No, I'm next. I've been waiting for forever." Another mage pushed him back. "I should go next. I already beat you, so there's no chance you'll win against the kid." "Winning isn't my intention. I just want to learn how to get better." Michael sat in the middle of the library with his table getting crowded by a sea of overly eager mages. He was glad that he was learning a lot of spells, but there came a point where there were just too many of them. Most of the spells he learned were cool but had little practical uses. He had to get picky. "The spells I'm seeing are getting boring. If any one of you can present me with an interesting spell, then I'll battle them next round," Michael announced. His words sent the mages into a frenzy. They immediately shouted their most secret and sacred spells out loud just so that they could get a chance to play a round of chess with Michael. "I can show you a 4-star spell called Duplicity. It will create 3 clones beside you that make it virtually impossible to see which one is the real thing." "That's nothing. My 4-star spell can summon a giant meteor from the sky to rain down onto the ground. I have a 5-star spell called Cloud Surf. You can summon a moving cloud under your feet that you can use to traverse the air like a bird." Michael was interested in a lot of them, but he couldn't decide which one he was going to choose. Just then, amid all the chaotic shouting of the mages, an old serene voice somehow won amongst the rest and reached Michael's ears. "Gugu, if it's a spell you want to see, then how about an 8-star spell called Draconic Blaze?" The rest of the mages went silent as they heard this voice. They wouldn't dare speak out. They slowly made way for him as he walked towards Michael with a leisurely step. Chapter 34. Meeting the Tower Master. By now, the crowd around the library had gotten a lot larger. A friend told a friend who told a friend that a genius 5-year-old kid was beating up the mages at Reborn chess. They all came to the Magic Tower, flooding the 2nd floor just for a chance to see one of the games. "Whoa, who's that old dude? He looks weak. Why do the other mages let him be the next one in line?" From what they saw, the old man had just arrived and didn't even participate in the previous chess tournament. There were plenty of other candidates who hadn't gotten their chance. But strangely enough, the competitive mages meekly stepped aside and let the old man approach the table. Silence was their only response. As the normal people tried to wonder about the real identity of the old man, one of the more knowledgeable citizens had a glint of recognition in his eyes. "I recognize him. That white beard flowing down to his waist, that peaceful smile on his face, the white pointy hat. That's the Tower Master." The spectators gasped. Nobody had ever seen the rumored 8-star Tower Master of Kingsbridge out in the open. They heard he stayed at the top of the Magic Tower at all times and only bothered to come down during important events. They didn't think this would be considered as one. "He's the Tower Master?" Michael thought. "I thought he was just joking about knowing an 8-star magic spell." The Tower Master kept his smile as he sat down opposite Michael at the chess table. "How about it, kid? Do we have an agreement? If you beat me, I will perform one of my best spells in front of your very eyes." Michael pondered for a second. "And what if I lose?" The Tower Master smiled. impressed that a 5-year-old kid had the presence of mind to worry about consequences. "If you lose, you'll join our magic tower as my apprentice." The Tower Master's declaration sent the mages into an uproar. Becoming the apprentice of the 8-star tranquil blazing king of fire was an intensely coveted position that most prodigies fail to even qualify for. They were confused as to why that was the losing condition. It was a prize for the 5-year-old kid rather than a punishment. And even then, they couldn't understand why the Tower Master offered such a prestigious honor to this child. Sure, he was, by all extents, a prodigious talent in chess, but that wasn't enough to become the Tower Master's apprentice. "Who is this kid anyway? I thought he was just a normal child. But is there something special with him?" Even the spectators above couldn't help but gossip about Michael. Most of the people here were fans of mages, so they knew about the best talents and upcoming geniuses of the younger generation. But none of them recognized Michael. He wasn't from the famous magic families or the talented knight families. This intrigued them. If Michael was talented enough in magic that the Tower Master was offering him an apprenticeship, they should have known about him by now. But Michael's identity was still shrouded in mystery. They would have never thought that the youngest son of the Vanderbilt family, a lineage known only for their business acumen, would bring the most talented up-and-coming magician of the current times. "What's wrong? Don't like the conditions?" the Tower Master asked, stroking his long white beard. Although Michael wasn't worried about losing, he didn't like the idea of being forced to stay in the magic tower for his entire life. "Are you perhaps scared of losing?" the old man teased. And that was enough reason for Michael. "Let's play then," Michael said as he moved the white pawn. Immediately, Michael realized that he was playing with an opponent unlike anyone he had ever played before. It was as if he was playing against someone from his previous life, who knew all the tricks and openings established through 1,000 years of chess history. He had to think longer about making his moves or else he would find himself on the losing side. He had to get serious. The rest of the mages and spectators observed the high-level battle between the two of them with nothing but silence, reining in their gasps of surprise whenever one of them made an amazing move. Time passed as Michael and the Tower Master engaged in a close battle, exchanging captures with each other. Slowly, their pieces lessened, with each side playing with nothing but their pawns, a bishop, and their king. "Whoa! The two of them are head-to-head. I don't know who's winning." Nobody had ever lasted this long against the kid. Has he met his match? "I think the Tower Master will win. He's a world-class 8-star wizard after all." The moves continued, with Michael's only bishop getting cornered by 2 pawns. He had a choice to make. He could choose to save his bishop, but risk his king at an unfavorable position, or let his only bishop be captured, turning the tides on their battle for the Tower Master. Either way, it looked like the old man was about to win. It was a delicate situation. "Would you like me to show you a checkmate win in 7 moves?" asked ChatJK1. "There's no need," Michael replied. Although he looked like he was in trouble, Michael had seen enough late-game moves from some of the pros back in his previous life to know exactly how to win this game. "It's your move next," said the Tower Master, with a bit of haughtiness in his voice. He thought he had the game in the bag. But as Michael reached for his move, he chose to pick up a pawn on the opposite side of the board, completely surprising the crowd and the Tower Master. They gasped, thinking that the 5-year-old boy finally made a blunder. But the more knowledgeable chess players considered Michael's move and tried to play it out in their heads. And they quickly realized that this was a killing move. A frown formed on the Tower Master's face as he too realized the significance of that seemingly blunder-like move. After a few seconds, a smile broke out on his face, continuing with a raucous laughter that filled the library. "Ha ha ha ha! I lost!" Chapter 35. Magic Library. The Tower Master, realizing his inevitable defeat, chose to surrender rather than play out the game. No matter what move he made, Michael would have cornered his king either way. There was amusement on the 8-star wizard as he looked at Michael. He had heard a lot about the Vanderbilt boy but thought that they were too far-fetched to believe. He heard from his previous student, Lilia, that Michael created running water without the use of magic, created a mechanism to keep accurate track of time, and even made a hot spring in their backyard. Knowing about Lilia's tendency to become too proud of her son, the Tower Master thought that she was exaggerating. But after witnessing him up close and personal, he was convinced. This child was brilliant, plain and simple. He too had become one of the mages addicted to the game of Reborn chess and played it non-stop ever since it was invented. It even led to a rumor that he stayed in his room all day like a hermit. But in truth, he was busy playing Reborn chess with other intellectuals at his level. It came to a point where he thought he was the best player in the game. He was proven wrong. The Tower Master wanted Michael to be his apprentice just for his chess talents alone. That way, he could have someone to play Reborn chess with every day. But the Tower Master noticed something else within the boy. Even when the child was busy concentrating on the game, the elemental mana particles continued to be absorbed into his body. It wasn't being sucked into his body. The more proper explanation was that the mana particles shot themselves toward him, as if he was deeply beloved by the universe. It was as if he was in a state of perpetual meditation, continuously gathering mana and improving his cores at all times. It took the Tower Master 2 decades to master that technique, yet a 5-year-old child was able to do it flawlessly. Michael's level of genius was simply absurd. When he heard that Michael had a quadruple mana mastery, he wanted to teach the child personally and lead him to the peak of mystic arts. But he quickly realized that Michael was too talented. All magic came naturally for the child, and any guidance he would teach him could have the opposite effect. After all, just like every mage in the world, he was stuck as an 8-star mage with no way of advancing. He didn't want Michael to become like him. Perhaps it was better to let Michael grow naturally, just like the previous legendary heroes of old who reached the mythical 9-star realm. "I haven't introduced myself," the Tower Master said. "I am Cerberus Augendor, the 10th Master of the Kingsbridge Magic Tower." Michael accepted his hands and introduced himself as well. "I'm Michael von Vanderbilt." And when the crowd heard his surname, they went into an uproar. "Vanderbilt? He's the youngest son of that family? Whoa! A Vanderbilt was able to beat the Tower Master in Reborn chess. Who knew they birthed such a talented young child?" Seeing the rowdy spectators, Cerberus invited Michael to a more private location. "Let's talk in my chambers," he said before snapping his fingers. And suddenly, Michael found himself in a completely different room, away from the noisy library and the chess-hungry mages.
Instant téléportation?
ChatJK1, tell me you were able to analyze that. Analyzing magic. Magic theory acquired. Translocation. Light and dark element. This magic allows the user to teleport to any location that the user has visited before. Just learning a 7-star teleportation spell was enough for this whole trip to be worth it. Where are we? Michael looked around and saw a huge dome chamber with a clear window overlooking the skies. Complicated magic circles floated all around the room, along with different mundane objects like pens and globes acting without gravity. "This is the top floor of the magic tower, my solace, my sanctum, and the only place that I call home," Cerberus said, spreading his hands. Michael wouldn't have guessed that answer. This chamber didn't look like a room, but a space observatory instead. There wasn't even a bed in sight for anyone to sleep in. "What's that?" Michael asked as he pointed at the center of the room, where a large collection of floating light points were connected through intersecting lines. It looked like one of those virtual projections of neural networks that he saw in sci-fi movies back in his previous life. "That is a library," Cerberus explained. "Every book, scroll, and knowledge that the magic tower has accumulated throughout all the years is contained here in this place." Michael couldn't help but stare in wonder at the magic tower's library. This must have been the equivalent of a computer in this fantasy world, which was probably even more complicated since magic was more complex than a bunch of ones and zeros. "I promised you the presentation of an 8-star magic spell, but I'll give you the chance for something better. You are planning on learning about better spells, right? Well, it's better to start at the beginning. I can give you access to the best magic spells this world can offer, from the easiest 1-star spell to the very complicated 8-star spell. In the future, you can visit this magic tower and access this magical library to learn and get better at casting the mystic arts. Cerberus' proposal was a lot better than their original deal, so Michael was inclined to accept. Since this magical library contained all the spells that this magic tower accumulated throughout its entire history, Michael would gain more spells in the long run. But then, a thought popped up in his head. The thought was so shocking that it sent a bolt of electricity running through his spine. His idea was so bold and enticing that his body couldn't help itself and moved entirely on its own. Michael walked forward, his eyes staring at the moving points and lines of the library. He raised his hand and touched one of the floating points. As soon as his skin made contact with the network, a ripple in reality propagated through the magic library like a serene pond being touched by a bird's beak. Suddenly, all the information in the magic library transferred from the tip of his hands all the way over to his brain. Connecting to the magic library. Downloading its contents. Warning: there is an overload of information surging through your mind. Emergency shutdown of your body engaged for safety purposes. Michael saw the world turn dark as his body slumped down on the floor. Chapter 36. Software Update. Updating software. Supreme skill obtained. Emergency shutdown lifted in 3, 2, 1. Michael regained his senses, and the first thing he noticed was the heaviness in his chest. It felt like his ribcage was about to be crushed. Am I dying again? Oh, Michael, what happened to you? Michael thought he was going to meet God again after just 5 years of reincarnation, but the sobbing voice of his mother brought him back to reality. He slowly opened his eyes, reminiscent of when he was born 5 years ago. Mom! Lilia had her head on his chest, embracing him with such a grip that even death itself could not rip her little boy away from her arms. She was the reason why his heart felt so heavy. Oh, Michael, you're awake. Lilia brightened up once she saw her dear boy open his eyes. She immediately wrapped her hands around his head, almost suffocating him. Lilia, it's not a good idea to smother the boy after he just woke up. Michael heard the voice of Cerberus in the room, but he couldn't see him courtesy of his mother. HPMH, this is your fault, old man. We leave him in your care for half a day, and you already made him pass out. We're never returning to this place ever again, Lilia said, hissing at the revered 8-star wizard like he was an unwanted fly in the room. Please, honey, even if he was your master, you cannot talk to a tower master like this. Bart tried to talk some sense into his wife, but she was far too emotional after hearing about Michael's sudden collapse. No, it's all right, said Cerberus, admitting his fault. I didn't know he would pass out after making contact with the magic library. I have never heard of this phenomenon before, and for that, I apologize. Michael himself didn't know what happened. The last thing he remembered was the feeling of his entire body heating up like an intense fever had overcome his entire being. He felt his head swell up, as if he had been doing a handstand for an hour and pooling all the blood into his brain. He thought his head was about to explode, but after that he remembered nothing. Hey ChatJK1, what happened to me after I touched the magic library? Greetings, Michael. Immediately something was weird. ChatJK1 never addressed him by his name before, only by you or user. What's happening? Making contact with the magic library allowed all its contents to be downloaded into this network. However, the amount of information contained in those nodes far surpassed the capacity of your adolescent brain. To prevent further damage, the emergency shutdown of your body was initiated. During your unconsciousness, I have used the entire contents of the magic library to upgrade this software. Greetings, Michael. I am ChatJK2, your personal AI assistant, knowledgeable in the mystic arts. Michael knew that something would happen once he touched the network of the magic library, but he would have never expected that it would lead to an upgraded software of ChatJK1. Knowledgeable in the mystic arts? Does that mean that you know a lot about magic and spells? Yes, Michael. The magic library consists of a lot of basic knowledge about the magic that was gathered in the entire 893 years of history of the Kingsbridge Magic Tower. Cool. What can you do with that? Using the current understanding of magic in this world, I was able to compile your magical abilities into an easy system for you to understand. Would you like to see it? Of course, Michael said yes. And the moment he did, he saw words and graph tables floating in front of him like a screen. He immediately recognized this to be a system, just like the ones he saw in anime and fantasy books. But unlike other systems, Michael's looked simple.
Michael von Wenderbilt.
Magic Talent. SSS plus class. Element Mastery. Not applicable. Magic Purity. 99.99%.
Mana quantity, NA.
Realm. 2-star Novice Magician. Michael looked at the contents of his system and couldn't help but complain about its incomplete data. His mastery and mana quantity were written down as not applicable, meaning not applicable. He didn't understand it. The current method to gauge a mage's element mastery does not apply to you. They do not account for a single mage to have the talent and mastery in every mana element in existence. Oh, it's good then. This is probably one of the talents that God gave me when I was reincarnated. I'm just talented in all magic, I guess. If the Tower Master heard Michael's thoughts, he would have passed out from shock. What about my magic quantity? Why doesn't it have any number? The method to measure the mana gathered in the core is not applicable to your current situation. Why not? The mana gathering that you are currently using is optimized only for the earth mana. Since you are talented in all the elements, it is inadvisable to continue using this mana gathering for the other elements in your body. The magic library contains other mana gathering techniques that are specialized for the other mana elements. However, it is inefficient to use a different meditation technique for each elemental mana in your body. Using the newly acquired mystic art knowledge from the magic library, a synthesized version of all mana gathering techniques has been created during the software update. Michael watched as a few words appeared in his vision, with their font and style evoking a sense of grandiosity along with the golden aura surrounding each letter. Supreme Skill. Unity Gathering. Whoa. A supreme skill. That sounds supreme. Supreme Skill. Unity Gathering will allow you to gather any and all mana in your surroundings, bypassing the need to store them in your cores. Your mana quantity is virtually limitless. You have a unique sense for the mana in your surroundings, with no spell preventing you from seeing mana anywhere. You have mastery over all mana, whether they be out in the open or contained in any vessel. Those last words evoked a jolt from Michael once he realized the full potential of his supreme skill. Chapter 37. Progressive Spell. If those words worked just as he thought, then it might be the most broken skill in existence. ChatJK2. Does my supreme skill allow me to control mana that is not mine? That is correct. You are able to exert influence over other beings' mana. The level of control you have over their mana will depend on the difference in the mastery of the spell. Michael had to admit that the supreme skill he obtained was nothing less than a golden cheat like those powers in anime and fantasy books. If he could control the mana of anyone he met, then he could disrupt any spell they were trying to cast. Or better yet, he could turn the magic around and let the caster be the target of their own spell. So this is a supreme skill. I'm surprised you're able to make such a strong skill on your own. ChatJK2. That is one of the benefits of the software update. Does this mean that you can create any kind of spell that I can think of? Can you synthesize everything into a magic spell? Synthesizing new spells is possible. However, it is only limited to 3-star magic spells and below. The information stored in this magic library is expansive, but there are still a lot of gaps in knowledge. To synthesize new spells above the 3-star level, a new software update is required. Obtaining new information from other sources such as a magic library will contribute well to the next update. Then ChatJK2 flashed a progress bar in his vision. Progress to next update, 0%. It was as if ChatJK2 was giving him a request. Give me more mystic knowledge, it said. Of course, Michael was incredibly motivated to do so as well. After all, the stronger his personal AI assistant became, the easier his life became. Case in point, he earned a really powerful supreme skill this time around. He could only imagine what more he would get in the next update. Michael inwardly decided to find more sources of knowledge in the future. Oh, baby, what's happening to you? Lilia noticed Michael's absent stare into the void and thought something had gone wrong with him again. Michael quickly snapped out of his focus on ChatJK2 and back to the present. And the first thing he noticed was that he could see, with crystal clear clarity, all the mana present in the Tower Master's chamber. Mana looked like fuzzy microscopic balls made out of tiny wiggling strings. And as he observed the mana around him, it looked like the mana was observing him as well. They regarded him with curiosity, as if this was the first time someone had actually looked at them with such clarity. Then, Michael's eyes were drawn to his mother, where he saw the intricate crystalline core forming inside her body. Suddenly, a screen popped up in front of his eyes, detailing her magic qualities.
Lilia von Vanderbilt.
Title: Earthen Witch of the West. Magic Talent: S-Class. Element Mastery: Earth. Magic Purity: 90%.
Mana Quantity 91,493 mana.
Realm: 7-star Expert Mage. So this is what it means to sense all mana in my surroundings. This is very useful. Michael realized he was still staring at his mother, so he quickly shook his head and acted normally. "I'm fine, Mom. I was just trying to get a grip on myself." Lilia rubbed his hair in worry. "Don't push yourself too much, dear." Meanwhile, Bart looked over to Cerberus. "Tower Master, is there any way we can be sure that this won't happen again?" The 8-star mage was ashamed to say that he was clueless. He couldn't find the answer as to why Michael passed out after touching the magic library. "I don't know why it happened, but I can assure you that there is no threat to Michael's body. I checked his well-being the entire time and saw no signs of degradation in his mental and physical state. It was as if he was just asleep." Bart felt relieved after hearing that. It was a scary thought to think that Michael would suddenly drop unconscious out of nowhere without an explanation. "Can we do something to prevent it?" Bart asked. Cerberus stroked his long white beard and pondered for a second. Then, he snapped his fingers and manifested an old and tattered brown book with its pages yellowing from years of exposure. "It's best if Michael focuses on improving his physical health first and foremost. His magical talents have manifested too early, creating an imbalance in his body that may have contributed to his sudden unconsciousness." The Tower Master walked over to Michael and handed him the book. "This is an earth magic technique that can help you improve your body by strengthening it with earth mana, turning it as resilient as the hardest of minerals. You will have a natural earth defense in your body without ever casting a single spell. This is a progressive technique, meaning that it will get better the more you practice and master it. The magic technique starts as a 1-star spell, but has the potential to reach the 9-star level." Michael received the book with dust poofing out of the cover. "This spell can reach the 9-star level?" Michael asked in wonderment. "Yes, but it is quite an outdated practice because it takes a lot of time and commitment for one to reach a reasonably strong defense. This was a product of a time when defensive spells were uncommon. Once more emerged that could be cast within a second and didn't need copious amounts of time to practice, this technique became obsolete. But it doesn't matter to you. We only need to improve your physical resiliency, so practicing this technique till the 2nd level will suffice." Lilia quickly took the book and nodded to herself, feeling that it was a sufficient earth technique for Michael to learn. "As soon as we get home, I'll help you train so that this will never happen again." Chapter 38. Synthesizing a Skill. Michael and his family went back to the Vanderbilt residence soon after the business with the magic tower was over. Lilia didn't want Michael to spend another second in that place, fearing that he would fall unconscious yet again. But thankfully, Cerberus certified his talent in magic, officially recording him as a quadruple talent mage. Michael looked at the tattered book in his hands. This was the magic technique given to him by the Tower Master to improve his physical well-being. According to him, this magic had the potential to become a 9-star spell. This made Michael wonder why it wasn't very popular with mages now. It seemed like such a good spell. ChatJK2, can you read the contents of this book? Certainly. ChatJK2 replied. Michael flipped through the pages, taking careful caution not to rip the paper out of the book. It didn't take more than 10 minutes for ChatJK2 to completely absorb the technique into its memory. Magic theory obtained. Progress to next update. 0.01%. Internal Earth Defense. Plus. Earth Element. This is a passive spell that is always activated and needs no intervention from the user. Earth mana must be integrated into the user's skin and internal organs, creating an internal defense with the same hardness and resilience as Earth minerals. This skill proves to be an unbreakable defense against air element attacks, as long as the attacking spell is not higher than the star rating of the skill. The user must continue to cultivate the skill to improve its star rating. Michael looked at the description of the skill and realized why it had fallen out of fashion with most mages. To improve the defense, Michael had to gather earth mana and imbue it onto his entire body. The problem was that he had to take precious time away from improving his mana core to continue cultivating this one spell. Most mages would rather not waste time building an earth-type defense and continue to improve their mana cores. Although this type of defense was good against air magic because of the inherent advantage of earth over air, it wasn't that good of a defense against other elements. It would be better to learn defense spells of different elements to keep themselves safe. I like the idea of a passive defense, but it's only good against air magic. ChatJK2, can you create this kind of spell, but in different elements so that I can have a defense against every element magic spell? Creating defense spells is possible. However, it is inadvisable for you to cultivate multiple of them at the same time, as it would waste too much time and resources. Would you like me to synthesize a new skill instead? You can do that? Wait, what's the difference between a skill and a spell? Michael received the supreme skill, but didn't want to think too much about it because it was too powerful. However, now was the perfect time for him to know the distinction between the two. According to the records in the Magic Tower, a spell is something that mages cast using the mana in their cores. Anyone can learn a magic spell as long as they know the magic theory, and anyone can cast them as long as they have the right mana in their cores. A skill is different because they are spells that cannot be learned through normal means. It is a talent that manifests naturally and cannot be taught to other beings. Would you like me to create a new skill with your specifications? Michael nodded his head enthusiastically. Skills looked to be a much more special type of spell, one that was unique to each individual. Why wouldn't Michael want one for himself? Synthesizing new skill. Complete. Skill. Absolute Unity Defense. Plus. Unity Element. This skill creates a passive defense against any and all types of magic. This defense is impervious to any magic spells or skills that are below or the same star rating as the skill. Cultivating this skill does not interfere with the growth of the mana cores. Michael stared in wonder at the new skill given to him by ChatJK2. This was the type of defense that he desired for all this time. If he cultivated this skill to the 2-star rating, then he wouldn't be hurt or affected by all kinds of 2-star spells. It was much better than the original technique, since that one only protected him against air spells. Since this skill used all types of mana, or what ChatJK2 liked to call unity, there was virtually no weakness that other mages could exploit. It didn't matter if they threw blazing magma, raging lightning bolts, or freezing icicles. None of them would break his defense. The best part was that this skill could continue to grow up to a 9-star rating, meaning that in the future, he would be practically invincible. Michael von Vanderbilt. Magic Talent. SSS plus class. Element Mastery. Not applicable. Magic Purity. 99.99%.
Mana Quantity. NA.
Realm. 2-star Novice Magician. Progress to next update. 0.01%. Supreme Skill. Unity Gathering. Skills. Absolute Unity Defense. Learn Spells. 1-star. Water Ball.
Ember.
Rock Throw. Judging from the way ChatJK2 presented his skills, it looked like he could get more of them in the future. As for his supreme skill, Michael treated it like a trump card or an ultimate power. He doubted that he could get something that powerful again. Michael continued his daily life in the mansion, with his mother preventing him from leaving the mansion for the time being. She was even more traumatized than him after his episode at the Magic Tower. She didn't allow him to leave the estate for as long as she was sure that he would never fall unconscious ever again. And to achieve that, she continued to teach and tutor Michael on improving his physical well-being. She helped him practice the internal earth defense spell that Cerberus gave him. Secretly, though, he improved his absolute unity defense skill instead. He did 100 push-ups every day, ran a 2-kilometer circumference around the estate, and did 100 crunches, all while gathering mana in his body, strengthening it from the inside and out. Time passed until it was 5 years later. Chapter 39. 5 years later. A young boy looked at his reflection in the mirror. He tugged on his golden hair, which had grown long enough to reach his ears. Instead of the skinny boy from before, Michael had grown into the makings of a man. Now that he was 10 years old, his body had started to develop with a little more meat on his bones. Training nothing but his body for the last 5 years had allowed him to reach good physical fitness, even better than his previous life. He put on his clothes and strolled out of his room with a pep in his step. Beretta, the veteran maid, passed by him with a plate full of food on both her hands. "Young master, please take an umbrella with you when you go out. It's raining outside," she warned. But Michael continued to walk out the door without a care in the world. Just as Beretta warned, there was quite a bit of downpour outside, even though the skies looked so clear. It didn't matter, though. He stepped foot outside, with the raindrops falling just an inch short of Michael's entire body. A strange, almost invisible layer of prismatic coating prevented the water from wetting his hair and clothes. Michael had practiced his absolute unity defense skill to the 4-star level, meaning that he was invulnerable to any and all kinds of magic that were below the 4th level. And since rain was a naturally occurring source of water mana, it was equivalent to a 1-star water ball spell. If he didn't want to get wet, Michael would never get wet. As for his mana cores, he was the equivalent of a 4-star mage as well. He would have advanced much further, but the presence of unique elements such as the lightning and poison mana were hard to acquire. He had to ask Cerberus for some mana stones that contained those elements. The Tower Master frequented the Vanderbilt estate with the pretense of overlooking Michael's magic, but in truth, the old man simply wanted to play Reborn chess with him. Of course, Michael would always win. And the funny thing was that the Tower Master wasn't even the second-best player in the Vanderbilt estate. That honor was retained by Sebastian, who came very close to beating Michael a couple of times throughout the years. Magic wasn't the only thing that Michael worked on for the last 5 years. His Reborn company continued to expand its name throughout the other cities and villages. Business had been slowly growing, with his income becoming too much to even count. Michael didn't bother with all of those because most of the money they earned was invested back into the company. Castell continued to employ craftsmen, blacksmiths, and even mages under the company banner, expanding the products they could produce. Of course, he continued to invent new things to keep their products fresh in people's minds. For example, Michael created the very first matchstick. He wasn't going to sell it at first and only intended it to help the maids light fires during the winter. But once Castell saw how easy it was to create fire without magic, she begged him to let her sell it as a Reborn product. Just like the first boom of soap and shampoo, matchsticks became a hot product in their business. But even though the number of matchboxes they sold far outnumbered the number of soap and shampoo they sold, it didn't bring in much money. After all, he only sold the matchboxes at about 20 copper coins. Despite that, it was still worth it. This ended up becoming the catalyst that helped Reborn become widely known in the small villages and cities outside Kingsbridge. After all, the citizens of those places didn't have money to hire their own fire mages like the wealthy citizens of Kingsbridge. So, having easy access to fire became a literal lifesaver for most people, which was what Michael wanted in the first place. He created more products that greatly improved people's quality of life. He created the compass, which became a must-buy for people traveling all the time. Another was eyeglasses, which allowed most people to regain their ability to read. All of those contributed to the profit and reputation of the Reborn company. One big project he worked on during the years was a revolutionary form of transportation: the bicycle. He still wouldn't forget that moment when everyone in the Vanderbilt estate gathered in the backyard to try out the bicycles on their own. Many fell to the ground, getting cuts and bruises on their elbows. But still, the smiles on their faces were priceless. His mother and father tried it as well, with Bart quickly getting captivated with the desire to use it for his daily trips to Kingsbridge. Of course, that was quickly shut down once Lilia and the maids expressed their concerns about his safety. The bike was much faster than walking, with less effort as well. It was especially useful for the maids and butlers, who had to traverse the large and expansive Vanderbilt estate every day, keeping the area well tended. With the help of ChatJK2 and the myriad of 2 to 3-star magic spells in his repertoire, he was able to construct these inventions without much trouble at all. As long as it didn't require a source of energy, he could create anything. That was until now. After 5 years of constant failure, trial and error, spending blood, sweat, and tears, Michael finally created a working prototype of an engine. This particular type of machine needed a lot of perfect pieces, with even just a little bit of an imperfection turning the entire thing useless. The problem was that the materials needed to be strong enough to handle the pressure. However, that meant that it would be a lot harder for Michael to bend the materials to his desired specifications. But after 5 years of working on it constantly, it was finally done. Michael walked into his project room and assembled the parts into one machine, with the final piece fitting with a satisfying clink. Now, he just needed fuel and he could finally harness electricity. Chapter 40, Milestone for a 10-year-old. Michael walked up to his parents' master bedroom to ask them where he could buy a gallon of petroleum oil. He needed a lot of them for his electricity project to succeed. Knock, knock. Excitedly, he opened the door without waiting for a response. And when he walked in, he noticed that Bart and Lilia were in the middle of discussing something serious. It seemed that this wasn't the right time to ask for a favor. Sorry, Michael said. I should have waited. Bart shook his head. It's all right, son. Come on in. We were just about to call for you. Michael observed the serious look on their faces. Is something wrong? He asked. His mother motioned for him to sit on the bed with her, which he complied. Then, she started to rub his hair, just like she used to when he was smaller. Dear Michael, you know that you are about to turn 10 years old, correct? Michael was aware of his birthday, but he didn't think it was anything special. After all, he already convinced them to forego a lavish party a few birthdays ago. Son, you don't know this, but 10 years old is an important milestone for a child. I am not exaggerating when I say that it will change your future, Bart said, crossing his arms. Michael frowned. What are you talking about? At 10 years old, a child will have the opportunity to have what's called a talent awakening, his mother explained. What's that? Michael asked, completely clueless. Talent is inherent in every person. It is the thing that they most excel at, even if they know it or not. And with a talent awakening, they can find out that inherent aptitude they had all their life. Michael had ChatJK2 search the records in the magic library about a talent awakening, but there was not a single book that detailed what it was. What will I get if I awaken a talent? Michael asked. Someone who awakens a talent will gain new spells that only they can learn. Those spells will have something to do with the talent they awakened. For example, someone I know gained the talent called Magma Technician. One of the spells they gained was called Magma Swim, giving them the ability to live in a volcano and remain unharmed. A glint of recognition flashed through Michael's eyes. Her explanation was very similar to what he heard 5 years ago. The unique spells that people learn because of their talent is called a skill. Michael's eyes widened. This was the exact explanation ChatJK2 gave him when describing the difference between a spell and a skill. He didn't know that people gained a skill through their talent. He even thought that it was something that ChatJK2 made up on its own. Meanwhile, Lilia saw Michael's stern face. Her heart ached, thinking that her son was worrying about the talent he was going to get. Don't worry, my dear son. I'm sure that with your aptitude in magic, you will get a talent related to your quadruple mastery course. I'll predict it now. You'll have a talent that will allow you to harness all 4 elements and combine them into one. I'm sure you'll get a supreme skill, Lilia declared. Michael's jaw dropped. Honey, don't get the boys' hopes up. You do know that a supreme skill hasn't shown up in our country in more than 100 years, right? Bart remained the realist. Humph, you don't believe in your son? With how smart he is, I'm sure he'll gain one, Lilia insisted. Of course, I believe in Michael. I just think it's best if we don't have any expectations for his talent awakening. Bart then approached his son and ruffled his head. Michael, we love you no matter what talent you awaken. You know that, right? But the 10-year-old Michael still couldn't believe it. Even though he hadn't undergone the talent awakening yet, he already had a skill of his own. A supreme skill at that. He didn't even know that was possible. A supreme skill? What's that? Michael asked awkwardly. A supreme skill is an extremely broken power that can rewrite reality itself. From what I know, there are only about 10 of them in the entire world, and each of their wielders are beings of immense strength and power. The current king of the seas controls the oceans because of his supreme skill. The monstrous demon king commands the respect of all monsters because of her supreme skill. The draconic empress reigns supreme over her entire race because of her supreme skill. Michael, do not be let down when you don't get a supreme skill. They are too powerful to be left in too many hands, so God only bestows them upon a very select few. Bart's explanation made Michael sober up. He would have never thought that the skill he obtained from ChatJK2's software update would turn out to be so special. He knew it was strong, but he didn't know it was rule the world strong. There's no use arguing about it here. We should head over to Kingsbridge right now and visit the church, Lilia said, already packing for the trip. Michael didn't know what would happen to him in his talent awakening. What do you think, ChatJK2? I do not have enough knowledge about the subject. However, I can assure you that if you receive a talent, acquiring another supreme skill is more than possible. ChatJK2. According to my parents, supreme skills aren't that easy to get. And I already have one of my own. Thanks to you. I doubt I'll get lucky again, right?